That's not Alzheimer's. That's something else entirely. So now they want to push these shoes on us. Now, Alex warned you about this, if you recall. Alex warned you about exactly this thing. He said, look, first they're going to roll out the RFID tracking chips in your pets. And then they're going to push them on your parents and your grandparents and your Alzheimer's, your senior citizens people. And then they're going to push them on your children, because children might get lost too. And then finally it's going to be, well, if they're good enough for your children and your grandparents and your dog, then they're going to push them on everybody. Everybody should be tracked. What if you got lost? What if you went on a fruit-picking expedition and couldn't find your way back? Wouldn't you want to be able to press a button and have the authorities locate you by your shoes? Oh, that's a good one. Why not just have GPS underwear, for that matter? I mean, you could lose a shoe. At least, for the most part, you would probably still have your underwear on, no matter what kind of fruit you were picking out there in the orchards. GPSunderwear.com. Somebody patent that before it gets taken by the globalists. All right, a little bit of humor here. Unbelievable. All right, Robert Scott Bell is on the phone with us, or I think he's joining us by Skype. That's great. So let's go to Robert now, and let's have some coverage of the Raw Milk Freedom Riders event that just took place a couple days ago. Robert, are you with us, man?
Yeah, Mike, I'm here. Thanks for having me on board tonight to report on an amazing event traveling from Pennsylvania on down to the FDA in Washington, D.C. It was actually quite historic to see what a group of courageous, somewhat angry, but really pleasant moms can do to change the world.
Yeah, well, you were right there. You were an embedded reporter in that whole caravan. What was it like there, Robert? Describe the energy. I know that Adam Kokesh from Adam versus the Man was there as well. Describe the people that you saw. What actually took place during that really an historic protest for food freedom?
They were really quite revolutionary. I mean, on one hand, it was really kind of interesting because when you think about doing a revolution, you think of, serious warriors armed to the teeth, etc. And here I was with a bunch of, homeschool moms, super moms, housewives. I mean, these people were amazing. We get up to Pennsylvania to grab the raw milk, or the illegal FDA contraband, as it's called. And at this point, they're starting to decorate the vans. I mean, this is not like a revolution I think they would have envisioned back at the time of Patrick Henry or anybody, but it worked nonetheless. And they start postering the vans, writing on. I almost felt like I was back in high school getting ready for the homecoming. And I was just amused by the scene because it was so peaceful and so not intimidating. Yet at the same time, these women had contacted the FDA and said, listen, come and get us. We're going to get the raw milk. We know it's a violation of your federal law, and you're going to call us criminals, but we're taking this stuff over the border, and you come and get us.
Well, yeah, that's a really important point. Is that was it Max Kane who called to report a crime to the FDA, right?
Yeah, they reported the crime and everything. So it wasn't like these women were sneaking around and hopefully they weren't going to get caught. I mean, they were literally prepared to get arrested and not see their family for 24 hours or however long it would take. And I had the great fortune and opportunity to meet with these women, many in their homes, met their little children. These were kids. None of them were unhealthy. They were all drinking raw, real milk, eating, some of them, a pretty Paleolithic diet, but the kids were fine. And I was just amused by the whole scene, at the same time recognizing the serious nature of it. I mean, there was two things going on, and being embedded in there, Mike, it was just an amazing thing to be part of that history. Now, and so carry on down right to the border. We fully expected to have state troopers or FDA agents right at the border with Pennsylvania and Maryland stop. They took pictures, interviewed by some reporters that were there. Of course, Adam Kokesh was also filming. And it was really quite – I stayed in an event because I was literally broadcasting live during this whole event, including through, TV uploads. And so we continued on down. We passed a number of troopers along the way. But the spirits were high. I was interviewing some of these moms.
Wait a minute, Robert. The troopers did not stop you and search your vans, even though they had pre-knowledge that this was a criminal event taking place?
We were nervous a little bit as we approached some troopers on the side of the road, but apparently they were just setting speed traps, more or less interested in making a ticket quota than they were in these moms. And it was, literally all over their vans. There was no question about what was going on here. And these women actually had their own handcuffs, and they were going to handcuff themselves to the milk that they were bringing.
Oh, man, that's great stuff. But, okay, so they went across state lines. They bought the raw milk in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
And then they were carrying it across state lines into Maryland. Now, that is a violation of FDA regulations.
Yeah, the prohibition of interstate transport of not drugs, but raw milk, food. In fact, food that has sustained life on planet Earth for perhaps thousands of years that suddenly, in the span of the last 20 or 30, became illegal and dangerous. So these women were really, like I said, courageous women. Let the women lead you in this case, as they have also in the vaccine awareness arena with all the children that are being harmed there. So, yeah, we were part of this history. We made our way down to Silver Spring, Maryland. And as we approached the FDA, that's where it became a little bit nerve-wracking. The ladies were looking around within the vehicles, and we saw lines of police cars and Homeland Security outside the not pearly gates of the FDA.
Okay, let's get to that in just a second. But first, how could the FDA have neglected to arrest these raw milk criminals, given that the FDA's position is that raw milk is so dangerous that transporting it across state line for the intent to consume it is such a criminal act that it can kill little children? How on earth could they have not arrested these terrible criminals? Isn't that a gross violation of the FDA's commitment to public safety or something?
Well, you would think so. I mean, literally, it's on the books, although we would call that law unconstitutional. But the reality is they've, taken part in horrific sting operations, multi-jurisdictional from federal, state, and local authorities, whether it be in Rossum in California or whether it be Dan Alger, the Amish farmer in the Baltimore, Maryland area. So, you fully expect that they were going to take a hard line on this. So why didn't they? It's a good question. Now, these women did not look like hardened criminals. They were tenacious in defense of their family and their children, but they were, absolute sweethearts. Couldn't have had better hospitality being up there with them. But as we approached, it was a little nerve-wracking. Were they going to arrest? As we pulled up into the park to try and go down into the parking lot, they stopped us and said, "No, you're not allowed in. You got to turn around." And they basically sent us across the street into the neighborhood. So they were not interested in arresting these women at all. In fact, 100, 150 people were already there with raw milk and, speaking, protesting, signs were waving. As people were going by, there was more milk to give away than I'd ever imagined would be there.
It was like a milk fest.
It was. I think they were intimidated, honestly. And as we find out, the FDA themselves wrote, made a release, a major release on this day, and we learned that, in fact, they talked to Liz Reitzig, one of the the organizers of this event, and they basically had said, we're not going to arrest you. In fact,
all right, well, hold on, Robert. We'll get to that. We'll get to that letter in just a second. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let's get to that letter in just a second. But first, the issue why they did not arrest these women, let's make sure that this is well understood by those watching and listening. It is because the FDA operates in darkness, okay? The FDA operates shrouded by secrecy. They have a network of spies who infiltrate the raw milk community and try to purchase raw milk from these farmers. I mean, it is an infiltration network of spies. This is with covert cameras. With giving a secret testimony behind the scenes. Oh yeah, we caught this store or this farmer selling raw milk. We caught these eggs weren't refrigerated. All these terrible things. But when you go face to face with the FDA and you say, "Come arrest us. We're going to drink this milk, or even sell this milk right in front of you, in front of your headquarters," they say, "What? Huh? What? What are you talking about? No, there's nothing going on."
Nothing to see here. I think it shows their cowardice, and the reality also is that they know how absurd these laws are as well. We've talked about this would be one thing, because these women don't want war. They just want to be left alone. Leave us alone. Let us care for our kids the way we believe is right.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what America is founded on, this fundamental freedom to not have our lives interfered with by the government. But of course, the raw milk thing is the pivotal point of food freedom in America, and that's why this was so important. Now let's get to the letter and the conclusion of what the FDA did in this case, because the FDA essentially, they refused to arrest the women, even though they say they're criminals. In the letter, then, they revealed, well, we will selectively not arrest certain individuals if we don't want to, but you're still a criminal. Isn't that what their letter said?
Basically, they said, with interstate sale and commerce distribution of raw milk, the FDA has never taken, now they're going back and saying never, nor does it intend to take enforcement action against an individual who purchased and transported raw milk across state lines solely for his or her own personal consumption. Now, I was not aware of this exception to the rule. I think, as we know, they make it up as they go along, and I think they realize that had they arrested, because we were, the women were sort of saying it might be good if we were arrested, not that they wanted to be, but if they were, it would have been the greatest embarrassment that the FDA has ever faced among many that are yet to even be revealed. And at that point, I think it would have been all over for them. I mean, they're rapidly losing out on let's say, the sympathy or empathy of a public that believes still that they might be doing some level of good to protect the public. I mean, Ron Paul in his wisdom saying, I want to cut them 40% in the first year. My perspective is they need to be cut 100% at this point, because the states can handle food safety much better than a federal bureaucracy could ever do.
I love Ron Paul's strategy of cuts. It's awesome. If we could get him into the White House, man, all the bureaucrats in Washington would be looking for new jobs, and that might be a very good thing indeed to get them off of our backs for the most part.
Absolutely.
No, go ahead, Robert, with a comment.
Mike, this strategy is astounding because it showed me firsthand the power of the individual, but also the power of moms, unarmed moms that simply carried the weapon, if you will, of raw, real milk, and how it, a multi-billion-dollar agency backed down to this peaceful, nonviolent Gandhi-like demonstration simply to provide food to their fellow man and woman and child. And that shows, I think it should show, that the enemy, although it is intimidating and they have some level of guns and they are willing to utilize violence, when confronted in this peaceful way, can be pushed back. Now, I'm not under the illusion that this is all over at this point, but I think this victory is something that is not Pyrrhic. It's a very real victory that should really be a lightning rod for others around the country to recognize that the most powerful tool we have is our consent. And withdrawing that consent, as these moms have, to say, listen, we don't care what you say the law is. We're going across the border. We're coming back. Come and get us. It puts these bureaucrats in a state of recognition of who they really are. Cowards, abject cowards who do not deserve to be labeled Americans as long as they're enforcing these illegal, unconstitutional provisions within the law.
Well, yeah, because where do they stop with all of this? It gets pretty crazy, and yet comes back to the importance of having the freedom to speak out, having the freedom to have the real journalism, like what you just did, Robert, by being embedded with that group of moms. That's real journalism. I mean, you'll notice, hey, CNN wasn't there. ABC wasn't there. Fox News wasn't there. How come they didn't have reporters riding along? Because they don't want to draw attention to the fact that we should have food freedom, you see. It was you and Russia TV and Natural News and InfoWars. I mean, folks, this is why your support is really crucial. The fundraising right now at InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com is up to, I believe, $142,000. There's still a lot to go, so please consider your support at that website. Yeah, there it is. You can check it out. And, yeah, look at that, $142,000 and much more to go. This is money that's going to be well spent around here at InfoWars.com on bringing you more truth and asking more questions of the globalists and the Federal Reserve and the FDA and all of those who say they're protecting us when, in fact, they tend to be taking away our rights instead. Now, Robert, I'm going to get a little wild with you here on this topic. What about, I mean, how far are they going to push this? Because technically, if you had moms with infants who are breastfeeding, if they drive across state lines, aren't they carrying raw milk in their own breasts? Is the FDA going to outlaw women's breasts next?
Well, we see that the issue of pasteurization is really the issue because women's breasts, in fact, engorged with milk present some level of competition to the agribusiness, big agribusiness farming practices, if you will. So it isn't too far afield, this idea of pasteurizing breast milk.